Sweet southern breeze, I'll always miss you. You've always been a part of my life. But now, I've moved to the northern states, where, right here, I'm gonna tell them my story. Tell them everything I know about... Damn, can't even say the name right. Messed up my head so much. It's messing with me. Couldn't believe it. But now, I think I really need to get this out, or else more and more people are gonna be dying soon. The story that I'm about to tell ye is called The Rot. The Rot should be taken seriously. It should not be laughed at or told in a children's book. It should be told with peers, adults, and on the news. People should watch out for it. And now, I'm gonna tell you all about him. It all started in the southern Alabama. My folks and I decided to move into a new house. It was swamp area, as I recall, and we wanted to start a new life there. It's a small town, not a lot of folks live there, but I don't know. I guess my pa, my ma, and I lived there. As being an only child, I normally clinged on to my parents. Didn't want to go away from them, or else, you'd be dead. But there's something that really freaked me out that I really wanted to cling on to my parents for. That's kind of the reason why we moved back up here. 16 now, and I was 15 when it all happened. I'll start by saying, it's God Almighty. I am so glad to be alive. Well, as a big explorer, I like to explore a lot. And as a kid, I always thought, swamps were interesting. And went out to that swamp one day. And I remember the air being very thick. Yeah. And brought a lot of heavy weight down on me. But then again, I was trying to skinny up because being a chubby kid, I was trying to lose some weight, and I had carried along a backpack with me full of rocks so I could lose some weight. But the weight of the backpack and the weight of the air seemed to combine together to push me way down. But I trudged on, trying to figure out what the hell was it, or should I explore this place more? What I found there was quite awful. I came up to a clear opening of the swamp and making sure that my boots were tight because I didn't want to lose a boot, and so it's hard to trudge back home without a boot that gets stuck in the swamp. So as I was fixing my boot, I heard something rustling. Sounded like a breeze in the wind in the trees. But I don't think that day was a windy day. As I look up, I see something a bit weird. I didn't know what it was, but I tried to go investigate. I walk over to the dang thing, or, whatever it was. And as I began to get closer, it looked like a naked human. Now, I don't see naked human a lot. Well, naked people. You see, I'm all out of words right now. I don't see a lot of people naked often, but what I saw was more than just naked. What I saw was awful. It seemed to be a naked woman with breasts hanging out. She was very, very skinny. And there's a lump on her shoulder. On her left one, if I was to remember. Left or right, whatever it was. There was a lump on one of her shoulders. And walk over to her and I'll say, Miss? Miss, are you okay? She creaks her neck and looks at me with, oh my God. Oh my God. I feel like I can't do this story anymore. But I need to keep going. Her eyes. She didn't have any eyes. There were holes. Nasty, nasty holes. And they're oh Lord. Oh Lord. Her face was entwined upright, and it was the most disgusting sight I've ever seen. I backed away. And remember when I was mentioning to you about that lump on her shoulder? It was no lump. It was another head. Another head that was stitched onto her body. And it seemed to be alive too, which I find it quite unnecessary. Well, not exactly unnecessary, but, you know, I don't think the doctors can do that kind of thing. I back away a little bit as she keeps forward. And that is when I began to run. And as I ran, I heard a terrible scream. It was the most awful scream I've ever heard in my life. One thing, and one thing only, that I forgot to mention about this lady was the blood on her. There was a lot of blood. So much blood. I've never just seen so much blood in my life. I've only seen it in horror movies, but I swear, once I got home, I told my ma, and I told my pa, and my pa took out his gun, and he went to go check out the swamp. I was inside with my ma. We were watching through a screen door, and all I remember from that night, my pa never came back. We called the police, and they investigated a little. They found remains of my pa in the swamp. Half of his face was eaten. His entrails were ripped out of him and placed everywhere around the swamp. Also, he was missing both of his arms and one of his legs. The police came back to us and told us, and my mom broke down crying. I just stood there staring. That thing could have ate me out there. I asked the officer who the heck would do such a thing. He sat me down. We talked face to face, and he told me a story. He told me a story of when he was a little boy, and the reason why he became a police officer. He told me that there's a native species that was never found. It was almost like Bigfoot, but more terrifying. It's said to be half human, half whatever. Not even human, more like humanoid. And it's said to eat people. It was called the Rot. The reason why it was called the Rot is because it looked as if it was rotting from the inside. You couldn't tell, but due to the skinny complexion, and the rotting features of the face, we all knew that could have been the Rot. I told him out front that I had seen the Rot, and the policeman told me never, never, never go back into those swamps again. I can't explain any more of this story without getting paranoid. I feel like the Rot is still there. It's after me. Sometimes in my bed, before I moved here to the northern states, sometimes I could hear something screaming out in those swamps out there, Alabama. Oh God, I could still hear those screams. If it wasn't for my ma taking me back, taking me up here, I would have never survived. I've heard stories too of kids and adults never coming back from that swamp. And sometimes some things would come in to their house and they would be found dead in their own house. And that's why I will never go back to that swamp ever again.